Should you take a cold shower or ice bath after a workout, or should you do a little bit of red light therapy? What is the difference? Where do they come into play? What's better for recovery? What's better for performance? Let's do a deep dive. Cool study published in the Journal of Oxidative Medicine and Cellular Longevity took a look at 22 soccer players, all right? And these 22 soccer players, they had them go through a progressive running test, like where they just progressively overloaded them, okay? And they gave them red light therapy treatment prior to their activity. Okay, what they found is that they had an improvement in their VO2 max, an improvement in their anaerobic threshold, meaning they were able to push it harder longer, and they had an improvement in their overall time to exhaustion, not to mention a decrease in their interleukin-6, which had to do with inflammation, so they had a kind of a modulated inflammation response. They had upregulated levels of superoxide dismutase, which showed that their sort of endogenous antioxidant capabilities were improving, and they had a decrease in creatine kinase, which is a marker for, well, just kind of fatigue. So if their creatine kinase levels were lower, they were fatiguing less. All right, that's all coming from shining a red light. It's pretty interesting, but we know now, based upon a lot of the research that's been out the last few years, that red light therapy is legit. I mean, the 49ers are using red light therapy as a part of their recovery protocol. There's a lot of legitimacy with red light therapy. It was first discovered when you took a look at growing plants in space. Okay, researchers said, wait a minute, plants are growing in space when exposed to red light. There's something going on here. So then they took a look over at human and animal models and they saw, wait a minute, this is improving ATP production, it's improving energy. And I'll talk about how it does that in just a minute. But let's jump over really quick to ice baths and cold showers for a second, because I have to kind of give a big picture. An ice bath or a cold shower is really about modulating inflammation, like flat out, in a very acute, quick fashion, which is not always something that you want right after a workout, because right after a workout or any kind of, like, I don't know, exercise, a little bit of inflammation is actually good. Okay, it's your body's response. You don't want to necessarily attenuate that like immediately. You want to improve your body's sort of biological way of attenuating it, not like sort of contrast, like just shocking it right there. There's a huge benefit to cold showers and to ice baths. There's just different times. We're going to talk about that. So the reason that red light therapy or photobiomodulation or low-level laser therapy, whatever you want to call it, there's a reason that that works. Okay, what it does is it affects our electron transport chain. Okay, it increases what is called cytochrome C oxidase, which carries electrons to ultimately create energy. When you look at cellular respiration, it's a pretty complex situation, but basically what happens is electrons are taken from our food and they're put into this sort of system where they ultimately get dropped and create a gradient and create, if you want to call it that, an explosion within our cells that creates ATP, creates energy. Well, what happens is red light therapy increases cytochrome C oxidase, which carries more of those electrons, ultimately making more ATP and more energy. So yes, I mean, the kind of broad view of that is that's got to be great for performance, but it's really good for recovery too, because more ATP means more energy to go towards recovery, right? The New York Academy of Sciences had published a study when they looked at cultured fibroblasts and muscle. They found that red light therapy caused fibroblasts and muscle to grow 5 times more. So this is great news for recovery when it comes down to potentially collagen, when it comes down to muscle, everything like that. Of course, there's a lot of other pieces we have to look at. Let's jump back over to ice baths and cold showers for a second. See, ice baths and cold showers are more about, I guess you could call it a hormetic stressor. It's not really supposed to be a recovery modality, but it does work with recovery if you were doing, say, contrast baths. But it's a different world. So a contrast bath is where you have like an ice bath and a hot bath or something to that nature. And that is going to create a rampant vasoconstriction where the vessels shrink and a vasodilation where they expand. And that's all about nutrient delivery. That's all about flushing out metabolites, flushing out byproducts, things like that. So a little bit of a different ball game. The ice baths and cold showers that we know of are more about improving mitochondrial biogenesis. What that means is allowing the body to create more mitochondria, which can help us out with fat burning. It can help us out with adapting to stressors, things like that. So sort of a different world. Now let's jump back to red light therapy again for a second. There was a study that was published in the American Journal of Sports Nutrition. This one took a look at 52 subjects with Achilles tendinopathy, meaning they really just had some tendon issues in their Achilles, right? They were having some pain. Normally, how you would treat those kinds of patients would be with specific exercise moves and eccentric contractions and things like that. So they had one group of people go ahead and do their standard exercise protocol, and they had another group of people do their exercise protocol in tandem with red light therapy. Okay, they found the group that had the red light therapy had vast improvements over the control group. They had better and faster outcomes, and their morning stiffness and their sensations of pain were dramatically reduced. I use red light therapy all the time. Okay, I use it when it comes down to recovery. I also use it for ambient light too, like just kind of the mental aspect. In case you're wondering, the one that I use is Juve, and they do have a new unit, which is pretty cool. Their new Juve Go, which has a handle, so you can just kind of hold on to it and just take it with you. That way you can do a little bit more like specific spots and stuff in your body. But the other thing is now they've changed their whole light model, so now you can do a treatment from 4 times the distance. So you don't have to be clothing it really close by. You can kind of hold it a little further out. It also has a pulsing technology, which works really, really well when you're looking at recovery modalities, because there's some science behind pulsing red light therapy. It also has the ability to have near infrared, but if you're using near infrared, you just want to make sure you're wearing the glasses, because that can be a little bit rough on the eyes if you're not careful. But anyway, that's the one that I use. There's a special link down below if you want to check them out. This is a really simple one. It's just a few lights, in one really easy on-the-go pack. And the cool thing is, like I mentioned before, Juve is the official recovery red light therapy for the San Francisco 49ers. So it's cool that this is getting into the NFL as well, and not just any red light, they're using Juve. So special link down below if you want to check them out. Highly, highly recommend them, because they are really what I would consider the top red light therapy device that's out there. Juve has also been supporting this channel for a very long time, because I've been using red light therapy for quite some time. So the last couple of years, they sponsored content on this channel to make sure the word gets out about red light therapy and the awesome research. So do check them out below. Okay, I want to make sure I'm not neglecting some of the benefits of a cold treatment, okay? If you are looking for specific like fat loss adaptation, there is a huge benefit to doing cold therapy. And a lot of what I do is mess around with red light therapy, cold treatment, and heat treatment with saunas. I'm all about rotating it up. The cold therapy is just better used when you are not surrounding performance. Okay, the old days of saying, oh, we're working out really hard, let's go jump in an ice bath afterwards, those are kind of done. The cold therapy is now more about allowing your body to adapt to a stressor. And what happens within the mitochondria is it teaches the mitochondria to produce more uncoupling proteins. And what those do is those same electrons that we talked about, okay, that go through this electron transport chain to create ATP and energy, uncoupling proteins reroute those electrons through them instead of to ATP production. So they route them through an uncoupling protein, which basically dissipates the electrons as heat rather than creating ATP. So obviously it's an adaptation to being in the cold, but this adaptation also encourages your body to utilize calories and electrons as energy for heat rather than energy for movement. So you're basically getting free calories burned. The way that I look at cold therapy is almost like a separate workout in and of itself. I don't see it as a recovery tool, I see it as a training tool, whereas I see red light therapy as a performance tool that also can surround my workout. So usually what I do is use red light therapy alternating either before my workout or after my workout. I also have other means of using it, like for mental, for cognitive and stuff like that, but that's really a little bit anecdotal and just how I feel. Okay, but then when you look at adding saunas into the mix, saunas are usually beneficial post-workout as well because of lymphatic drainage, but also just the overall folding and unfolding of specific proteins because of heat shock proteins, which I can talk about in another video. At the end of the day, cold therapy takes a while to adapt to. Okay, you are progressively increasing how much you can tolerate and how long you can tolerate it. You can't get a whole lot colder. Eventually you're going to be standing in a block of ice, but you can increase how long you are exposing yourself to cold. And that is, big with like obviously Wim Hof and everything like that, and breathing comes into the mix. There's a huge component there. I hope this is clearing up. There's two very different applications. Red light therapy is like quick, your body responds fast, but of course continuous treatment helps you out a lot more. Okay, and then when you look at things like cold therapy, it's more of a training modality that you add into the mix and progressively overload as you can. So as always, keep it locked in here on my channel, and I hope this cleared up the whole performance and recovery side. I'll see you tomorrow.